Johnny Carson named the 10 most fake Golden Age marriages.
What is your wife? Is she professional?
She's an attorney.
Oh, really?
Trial attorney.
Well, that's who I should have married.
They kissed for the cameras, but lived separate lives behind closed doors. For decades, Hollywood sold America fairy tale romances that were actually business arrangements with wedding rings. According to Johnny Carson's private conversations with Hollywood insiders, these 10 marriages weren't love stories. They were elaborate performances designed to fool the public. Some stars took these secrets to their graves, until now.
Is there a line so good you use it again and again? Yes. With this ring, I thee wed.
In his final years, after the cameras stopped rolling and the microphones were off, Johnny Carson became surprisingly candid about Hollywood's darkest secrets. According to his closest confidants, the legendary host kept a mental list of what he called Hollywood's greatest frauds, marriages that were nothing but studio fabrications. Tonight, we're revealing Carson's shocking list for the first time, and I must warn you, what you're about to learn will forever change how you see some of Hollywood's most iconic couples, especially number 3, which Carson called the most brilliantly orchestrated deception in Hollywood history. But first, we need to understand why these elaborate charades existed in the first place. The golden age of Hollywood wasn't just about making movies, it was about manufacturing myths. Studio executives wielded godlike power over their stars, controlling every aspect of their public image. A star's personal life wasn't personal at all. It was a carefully crafted narrative designed to sell tickets.
It's nice to see some of you believe in marriage, right?
Sure, I believe in marriage.
Yeah.
One time.
And nothing sold tickets like romance. The studios didn't just own an actor's talent, Carson once told a close friend. They owned their entire existence, their marriages, their children, even their bedroom behavior. It was all part of the package the studios were selling to America. When a star's true nature threatened their marketability, executives didn't hesitate to arrange a strategic partnership, Hollywood code for a fake marriage. Some of these arrangements concealed homosexuality in an era when being gay meant career death. Others rehabilitated damaged reputations or boosted publicity for upcoming films. But here's what makes these stories truly heartbreaking: the human cost. Real people sacrificed authentic relationships, denied their true selves, and lived lies that followed them to their graves, all to protect an illusion that made studios millions. Some of these people were prisoners in gilded cages, Carson reportedly told his producer. They smiled for fan magazines while living completely separate lives once their front doors closed. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous example, a marriage Carson once called a press release with a tuxedo.
But what about, you also made one or two spectacular mistakes too. Rock Hudson, for instance, that's a very funny story you tell in the show.
Well, it wasn't altogether a mistake. He was a terrific guy.
Yeah, but he
sure could have fooled me, I'll tell you.
1. Rock Hudson and Phyllis Gates. Rock Hudson embodied the American ideal of masculine perfection. With his chiseled good looks and commanding presence, he made women across America swoon. His image as the ultimate ladies' man made him one of Hollywood's most bankable stars through the 1950s and 60s. It was all a carefully constructed lie. Hudson was gay, a secret that would have instantly destroyed his career had it become public. By 1955, rumors about his sexuality had begun reaching dangerous levels. His agent, Henry Wilson, moved quickly to neutralize the threat. Wilson didn't just suggest marriage, said a former Universal Pictures executive. He orchestrated it like a military operation. The bride was conveniently close at hand, Phyllis Gates, Wilson's own secretary. Within months, America's most eligible bachelor was suddenly married, and fan magazines breathlessly covered every detail of their whirlwind romance. What remains deeply controversial is whether Gates knew the truth. Some Hollywood insiders insist she was a willing participant, a career-minded woman who understood exactly what role she was playing. Others maintain she genuinely fell in love with Hudson, completely unaware she was being used as a shield against career-destroying rumors. Gates herself claimed ignorance in her 1987 memoir, writing that she was devastated to discover the truth about her husband's sexuality. However, others close to the situation have questioned her account. Carson never bought her innocent act, revealed a former Tonight Show writer. He told me once, Everyone in Hollywood knew what rock was. The only way she didn't know was if she deliberately chose not to. Their marriage collapsed after just 3 years. The divorce papers cited mental cruelty, a deliberately vague term that revealed nothing while protecting Hudson's carefully constructed image. As Carson reportedly told a close friend years later, it wasn't a marriage, it was a press release with a tuxedo. Hudson continued living his double life for decades, forced to hide his authentic self until his death from AIDS in 1985 finally revealed the truth to a shocked public. Meanwhile, Gates spent the rest of her life fielding questions about a marriage that was, according to Carson's insider knowledge, nothing but elaborate theater.
117.
117.
Yes.
Should never fool with your fans.
No.
They'll come down and lynch me.
2. Vincente Minnelli and Judy Garland. When director Vincente Minnelli married America's sweetheart Judy Garland in 1945, fan magazines hailed it as the perfect union, the brilliant filmmaker and the talented performer coming together in a match made in Hollywood heaven. According to Carson's Hollywood sources, the reality was far more complicated. Minnelli, despite his talents as a director, carried a secret that threatened his career. He was widely believed to be gay or bisexual within industry circles. Though never publicly confirmed during his lifetime, these rumors were common knowledge among Hollywood insiders. Carson said MGM executives were masters at solving two problems with one marriage, recalled a former Tonight Show producer. Minnelli needed cover for his sexuality, and Garland needed someone to help control her increasingly self-destructive behavior. By 1945, Garland was already battling the addiction demons that would haunt her throughout her life. MGM, which had been pumping her full of amphetamines and barbiturates since childhood to maintain her grueling work schedule, hoped marriage to the disciplined, methodical Minnelli would stabilize their valuable but troubled star. What makes their relationship particularly fascinating is that, unlike many studio-arranged marriages, there appeared to be genuine affection between them. They welcomed a daughter, Liza Minnelli, who would follow her parents into show business stardom, but the foundation was built on quicksand. As Garland's addiction and mental health struggles intensified, the marriage crumbled. They divorced in 1951 after just 6 years together, another painful chapter in Garland's tragic life story. According to a close friend, Carson once summed up their relationship with his characteristic insight. Hollywood's brightest star married a man she could never reach. The painful irony? Their daughter Liza would later marry Peter Allen, a gay man, unknowingly repeating her parents' pattern and demonstrating how these cycles of studio-orchestrated deception could echo across generations.
You told me on this show more than once over the years that you didn't think you would entertain the idea of getting married again, and you seem to mean it.
You told me the same thing, Johnny.
3. Cary Grant and Diane Cannon. When 61-year-old Cary Grant married 28-year-old actress Diane Cannon in 1965, the public saw a May-December romance between Hollywood royalty and a beautiful young starlet. The age gap made headlines, but many industry insiders saw something else entirely, another chapter in Grant's lifelong campaign to suppress persistent rumors about his sexuality. For decades, whispers had followed Grant about his close relationship with fellow actor Randolph Scott. The two had shared a home, nicknamed Bachelor Hall, for 12 years, and photographs of them in domestic settings had raised eyebrows even in less enlightened times. Carson told me that Grant's series of marriages were Hollywood's most elaborate smokescreen, revealed a longtime associate of the late-night host. He said, Cary carefully chose women who enhanced his image at exactly the moment he needed them. Grant had been married 3 times before Cannon, each marriage coinciding with periods when rumors about his sexuality had intensified. But according to Carson's Hollywood sources, the Cannon marriage was different in one crucial aspect. She genuinely seemed to love him. They welcomed a daughter, Jennifer, but the marriage quickly dissolved into acrimony. During divorce proceedings, Cannon described Grant's controlling behavior, experimentation with LSD, and emotional distance, painting a picture far removed from his suave screen persona. After just 2 years together, they separated in a bitter public divorce that dragged on for years. When the dust settled, Grant retreated from public life, focusing on raising his daughter, while Cannon spoke candidly about the marriage's difficulties. Carson, who knew Grant well and had him as a guest on his show multiple times, reportedly remarked with characteristic sharpness, he loved women when the cameras were on. Was this final marriage a genuine attempt at late-life happiness, or Grant's last performance in maintaining his carefully crafted public image? Carson believed the truth contained elements of both. A man who had lived so long behind a mask that the line between performance and reality had permanently blurred. 4. Mickey Rooney and Ava Gardner. In 1942, Mickey Rooney was America's #1 box office star, famous for his wholesome Andy Hardy character. Ava Gardner was a stunning 19-year-old under contract to MGM, still waiting for her big break. When they married after a whirlwind courtship, fan magazines painted it as a fairy tale romance, the biggest star in Hollywood falling for a beautiful unknown. According to Carson's Hollywood sources, the reality was anything but romantic. Carson said Louis B. Mayer personally orchestrated that marriage, revealed a former Tonight Show producer. Rooney's womanizing was becoming a liability for his squeaky clean image. Gardner was young, gorgeous, and under tight studio control. Mayer saw it as the perfect solution to rehabilitate his valuable property. For Gardner, the marriage was reportedly a nightmare from the beginning. She later claimed Rooney cheated on her constantly, sometimes with prostitutes he brought to their home while she was away filming. The young actress quickly realized her fairy tale was actually a carefully constructed nightmare. The marriage lasted just 16 months before Gardner filed for divorce. In a particularly cynical move, while the divorce was still being finalized, MGM began promoting Gardner as the world's most beautiful animal, essentially capitalizing on the same sexuality that had supposedly driven Rooney to infidelity. Carson, known for his incisive wit, reportedly summarized the doomed union perfectly during a private dinner. They looked like a Hollywood couple from different movies. Gardner would later call the marriage her first mistake in a career that would include marriages to Frank Sinatra and Artie Shaw. Rooney, meanwhile, would go on to marry 8 times in total, a statistic that suggests his union with Gardner did little to tame his infamous appetites.
My husband is Franklin Walsh, the banker. Banker? Well, then what are you doing in that hideous hat?
5. Bea Benaderet and Jim Bannon. This might be the most forgotten fake marriage on Carson's alleged list, precisely because it operated so effectively as a cover. Bea Benaderet wasn't a conventional Hollywood star. She was the voice behind countless radio shows and later gained fame on television in Petticoat Junction and as the original voice of Betty Rubble on The Flintstones. Jim Bannon was a B-list Western star, best known for playing Red Ryder. Their 1938 marriage seemed unremarkable, just another Hollywood couple. But according to Carson's inside sources, it was perhaps one of the most successful marriages of convenience in Hollywood history. Johnny said this one flew under the radar because neither was A-list famous, explained a former Tonight Show staff member, but in radio circles everyone knew they lived completely separate lives while maintaining the perfect public image. Though they had 2 children together, close friends reported that Benaderet and Bannon maintained essentially separate households under one roof, each pursuing their own interests and relationships, while presenting a united front to the public and studio executives. What makes their situation unique is that both parties allegedly benefited equally from the arrangement. Unlike marriages where one partner was clearly being used as cover, Benaderet and Bannon reportedly had a mutual understanding and friendship that made their arrangement work for nearly a decade. Carson said they barely spoke at home, according to one of his close associates. He once called it a marriage of microphones, not hearts. When they divorced in 1950, it caused barely a ripple in the Hollywood press. Both went on to successful careers, Benaderet becoming one of television's most beloved character actresses, Bannon continuing in westerns, and eventually becoming a popular radio announcer. Unlike the high-profile star marriages on this list, the Benaderet-Bannon union succeeded precisely because it attracted so little attention, a perfect cover hiding in plain sight.
We've all been told that this is a second honeymoon for your birth. What do you say about it?
Well, it really is the first. We didn't have one at all, you know. We were working when we were married and didn't get away. And then we wanted to come to England in 1939 on a honeymoon, but the war stopped us, and Bob went in the Navy, and that was the end of that.
6. Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor. When gorgeous Robert Taylor married the slightly older Barbara Stanwyck in 1939, fan magazines exploded with joy. Both were major stars at MGM, both were bankable, and their union seemed to cement Hollywood's status as a place where fairy tales came true. According to Carson's inside sources, the reality couldn't have been further from the glossy magazine spreads. Johnny told me this was perhaps the most perfect example of what studios called a lavender marriage. a union created specifically to quash rumors about a star's homosexuality, revealed a former Tonight Show writer. In this case, Taylor's sexuality had become Hollywood's worst-kept secret. MGM head Louis B. Mayer reportedly summoned Taylor to his office after several fan magazines began hinting at the star's unusual living arrangements and bachelor tendencies. The message was crystal clear: marry a woman, preferably another star, or watch your career disintegrate overnight. Stanwyck, though heterosexual, had her own reasons for agreeing to the arrangement. As a woman approaching 35 in youth-obsessed Hollywood, she understood that marriage to one of the industry's most handsome men would reinforce her image as a desirable leading lady. It was, as Carson reportedly described it, a business merger with wedding rings. What makes their story particularly fascinating is how professional both stars were about maintaining the illusion. They appeared at all the right industry functions together, posed lovingly for publicity photos, and gave interviews about their domestic bliss, all while allegedly maintaining completely separate private lives. Carson said they kissed on the red carpet and shook hands at home, recalled a longtime associate. They were consummate actors, giving the performance of their lives every time they stepped out their front door. The arrangement lasted 13 years, an eternity by Hollywood standards, before they finally divorced in 1952. Even then, they maintained the fiction that their marriage had been genuine, with publicists blaming their busy work schedules for the split. Taylor went on to marry German actress Ursula Thiess, while Stanwyck never remarried, leading some Hollywood insiders to speculate that the painful charade had soured her on matrimony altogether. As Carson reportedly told a friend years later, they were both trapped by the times they lived in. In another era, he could have lived honestly, and she wouldn't have needed a husband to maintain her career.
My sweet wife is going to have a baby in April.
Good for you.
And that's going to make it 6 children for me.
The Viking.
Six children and 3 marriages.
Well, that's all right.
That's the way to do it.
7. Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis. They were Hollywood's golden couple of the 1950s, both stunningly attractive, wildly popular with audiences, and seemingly madly in love. Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis appeared in multiple films together, had 2 daughters, including future actress Jamie Lee Curtis, and graced countless magazine covers as the epitome of Hollywood romance. According to Carson's Hollywood sources, the reality behind closed doors told a very different story. Carson said Universal Studios practically ordered Curtis to marry, revealed a former Tonight Show producer. His bachelor lifestyle was generating the wrong kind of publicity, just as his career was taking off. Executives gave him a choice of 3 acceptable starlets to propose to. He chose Leigh. For her part, Leigh was allegedly advised that marriage to the handsome rising star would elevate her from B-movie roles to A-list consideration. What began as a mutually beneficial career move eventually produced genuine affection between them. But according to those close to the couple, it was never the passionate romance portrayed in fan magazines. The marriage's darkest aspect, according to Carson's sources, was Curtis's rampant infidelity. While Leigh focused on their family, Curtis reportedly had affairs with numerous co-stars, including Marilyn Monroe during filming of Some Like It Hot. Janet felt like she'd been cast in a role she couldn't escape, a former colleague of Carson's explained. She told Johnny once that she would read about her perfect marriage in fan magazines and wonder whose life they were describing, because it certainly wasn't hers. After 11 years together, they divorced in 1962 amid rumors of Curtis's involvement with his Taras Bulba co-star Christine Kaufman, whom he married shortly after the divorce was finalized. Leigh later admitted feeling blindsided by the split, suggesting the studio-crafted narrative had become so pervasive that even she had partly believed it. Carson, with his characteristic insight, reportedly summarized their relationship with devastating accuracy. America bought the illusion. She bought the heartbreak.
And the winner is Loretta Young for Christmas Eve.
8. Loretta Young and Tom Lewis. Loretta Young's 1940 marriage to radio producer Tom Lewis seemed, on the surface, to be a happy union between a Hollywood star and a successful behind-the-scenes industry figure. They remained married for 29 years and had 2 sons together, but according to Carson's Hollywood insiders, the marriage was actually an elaborate cover-up for one of Hollywood's most shocking secrets, Young's illegitimate daughter with Clark Gable. Johnny said this wasn't just a marriage of convenience, it was damage control on a massive scale, revealed a former Tonight Show writer. The entire relationship was engineered to give Young respectability after the Gable situation threatened to destroy her career. The story behind their marriage began in 1935, when Young and Gable co-starred in The Call of the Wild. Despite Gable being married at the time, the two had a brief affair that resulted in Young's pregnancy. In an era when such a scandal would have ended her career instantly, Young went to extraordinary lengths to hide the truth. She disappeared from public view, secretly gave birth, then arranged for her own daughter to be adopted through a Catholic orphanage. Young maintained this fiction for decades, raising Judy Lewis as her adopted daughter while searching for a husband who would provide the respectability she desperately needed. Tom Lewis, an ambitious radio producer with Hollywood aspirations, reportedly understood exactly what role he was playing in this elaborate charade. According to Carson's sources, Lewis agreed to never publicly discuss the true parentage of Young's daughter in exchange for the career opportunities that came with being married to a major star. Carson called it the most calculated arrangement in Hollywood history, said a former colleague. It wasn't a marriage. It was damage control. The marriage itself was reportedly cold and businesslike, with Young maintaining tight control over all aspects of their public image while Lewis focused on his career. When they finally divorced in 1969, few in Hollywood were surprised. The arrangement had served its purpose, preserving Young's career and reputation through the most conservative era in American entertainment. Young took the truth about her daughter's parentage to her grave, never publicly acknowledging that Judy Lewis was her biological child with Gable. It wasn't until 1994, when Judy Lewis published her memoir, Uncommon Knowledge, that the decades-long deception was finally exposed to the public. As Carson reportedly remarked to a close friend, "The greatest acting Loretta Young ever did wasn't in any movie. It was the 40-year performance as a woman with nothing to hide."
You've been an actor for almost half a century.
Over
half
55.
a century. 55 years. I undercut you about 5 years.
9. Henry Fonda and Susan Blanchard. When 46-year-old Henry Fonda married 21-year-old Susan Blanchard in 1950, Hollywood columnists cooed over the May-December romance. Blanchard was described as a breath of fresh air for the serious, somewhat dour Fonda, who had already been married twice before. According to Carson's Hollywood sources, the truth was far less romantic and much more calculated. Carson said Fonda's studio was panicking about his public image, revealed a former Tonight Show producer. After a messy divorce from Frances Seymour, who later committed suicide, Fonda was seen as damaged goods, depressed, difficult, and potentially unmarketable. Studio executives allegedly pushed for a rapid remarriage to repair Fonda's image as a family man and to provide stability for his 2 children, Jane and Peter. Blanchard, who had been working as a secretary to Fonda's agent, was considered perfect for the role, young, attractive, and without the connections or ambitions that might complicate the arrangement. For her part, Blanchard reportedly saw the marriage as an escape from her own troubled background and a fast track into Hollywood society. She quickly assumed the role of stepmother to Fonda's children, who were only a few years younger than herself. Johnny said it was the saddest kind of arrangement, explained a longtime Carson associate. Fonda needed a wife for his image, and she needed to escape her own life. Neither was getting what they really wanted. The marriage lasted less than 3 years before ending in divorce, with neither party seemingly heartbroken about the split. Blanchard quickly remarried, while Fonda went on to his 4th and finally lasting marriage to Baroness Afdera Franchetti. Carson reportedly summarized the brief union with characteristic precision. "They said I do, and quickly said I shouldn't have." The telling detail that revealed the marriage's true nature, according to Carson's sources, was that Fonda rarely, if ever, mentioned Blanchard in later years. When discussing his life, he would jump from his marriage to Frances Seymour directly to Afdera Franchetti, as if his time with Blanchard had been merely an uncomfortable intermission rather than a genuine relationship.
I've been a fan of her for many, many years, like all of you have. And I don't know what kind of an introduction you give somebody of her stature, other than just mentioning her name, Miss Joan Crawford.
10. Joan Crawford and Franchot Tone. When Joan Crawford married rising actor Franchot Tone in 1935, Hollywood celebrated the union of one of its biggest female stars with a promising male newcomer. Fan magazines portrayed it as a romance for the ages. the established queen of Hollywood finding love with a handsome stage actor making his mark in films. According to Carson's Hollywood insiders, the reality was a calculated business arrangement with devastating personal consequences. Johnny said Crawford was a master strategist when it came to her career, revealed a former Tonight Show writer. She saw in Tone exactly what she needed at that moment: cultural legitimacy and access to a social circle she desperately wanted to penetrate. Crawford, despite her massive success, had always been sensitive about her lack of formal education and her background in silent films, which some industry figures considered less prestigious than stage work. Tone, with his Princeton education and background in the prestigious group theater, represented everything Crawford aspired to: refinement, education, and artistic credibility. For his part, Tone reportedly fell genuinely in love with Crawford, unaware that he was being used as a stepping stone in her relentless climb to the pinnacle of Hollywood society. According to Carson's sources, Crawford's interest in Tone cooled considerably once they were married, and he had introduced her to the social circles she coveted. Carson said Tone left the marriage emotionally shattered, a former colleague explained. He told Johnny once that being married to Crawford was like being married to a corporation that had decided you were no longer a valuable asset. The marriage lasted just 4 years before ending in divorce, with Crawford almost immediately moving on to her next strategic relationship. Tone, meanwhile, reportedly never fully recovered from the experience, developing problems with alcohol that plagued him for years afterward. As Carson reportedly observed, with his characteristic insight, he gave her prestige. She gave him pain. Crawford's pattern of using marriages and relationships to advance her career became a recurring theme throughout her life, whether it was marrying Pepsi-Cola executive Alfred Steele to secure financial stability, or earlier using her relationship with MGM executive Paul Byrne to gain favorable roles. Crawford approached relationships as career opportunities rather than emotional connections. This calculating approach to personal relationships was, according to those who knew her, part of the private Crawford that few fans ever glimpsed, the relentlessly ambitious woman behind the carefully constructed public image. These 10 marriages weren't just publicity stunts. They were human lives, distorted by a system that valued image over authenticity. The true victims weren't just the stars trapped in loveless marriages, but the civilian spouses who often discovered too late that they were merely props in an elaborate Hollywood production. Consider Phyllis Gates, who spent decades defending her brief marriage to Rock Hudson, insisting it had been genuine. Whether she knew the truth initially or not, she ultimately became collateral damage in Hollywood's deception machine, forever defined by a 3-year relationship that was, according to industry insiders, nothing but carefully orchestrated fiction. Or Tom Lewis, who reportedly agreed to participate in Loretta Young's elaborate charade, only to find himself increasingly marginalized as his usefulness to her career diminished. According to Carson's Hollywood sources, Lewis grew increasingly bitter about his role in maintaining Young's carefully constructed public image, eventually turning to alcohol to cope with the reality of his marriage. Most heartbreaking were the children born into these arrangements. Judy Lewis grew up sensing something was amiss, but not understanding why her mother, Loretta Young, maintained such emotional distance. It wasn't until she was an adult that she discovered the truth. She wasn't adopted at all, but was Young's biological daughter with Clark Gable, hidden away to avoid scandal. Carson said these kids were the most innocent victims, revealed a former producer. They grew up in houses filled with secrets and tension, sensing something was wrong but never being told why. He said you could see it in their eyes when they appeared on his show, this wariness, this feeling that nothing was quite what it seemed. The psychological toll extended to the stars themselves. Cary Grant, according to those who knew him well, spent so many decades maintaining his carefully constructed public image that he ultimately struggled to connect with his authentic self. As Carson reportedly observed, after one particularly revealing off-camera conversation with Grant, he spent so long playing Cary Grant that I don't think even he knows who he really is anymore. This was the dark reality behind Hollywood's golden age. Human beings sacrificed on the altar of public image, living lives of quiet desperation while smiling for the cameras. It wasn't just their careers at stake, but their very identities.